Baptist Health. They're sponsoring us to do it right. You know what I'm saying? So we're going
Yes.
to do it right. We're
That
going to
was
get it
much
right.
better.
Yeah, exactly. I just got a text from a guy that he's like, here, I'll read it to you. They go, I'm not upset with the Heat not obtaining Dame, but I want to see what Spo will do with Nikola Jovic, Triple J, RJ Hampton, Orlando Robinson. And for me, I'm still pissed that they didn't get Dame. It's not their fault because Dame punked out. It's fine. I get all of that. But I'm still pissed about that. That's not what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
Spoelstra,
He'll
I
be
know
fine.
to overachieve. He's going to maximize everybody. If you can play, he will get every ounce of talent out of your body. Okay. So, last thing I'm worried about is Eric Spoelstra. I think that dude he's the best coach in the history of the Heat, bro. Yeah, I said that, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday he said this is a deeper team than last season. Um, I maybe right. I mean, I know they lost Gabe and Max, but you get J. Rich, Thomas Bryant. If Nico can take a step, if Jaime Jaquez is ready to play, if Orlando Robinson is better, he might be right. Deeper doesn't mean better, right? But we'll see. I think Eric Spoelstra has more talent to work with than people are giving the Heat credit for, and they are pretty deep. But we'll see. We'll see if they're better. That's the big question.
I think they'll be better, and I think they'll replace those guys. There's only one concern I have in replacing Gabe is the ball handling part of it,
Yeah.
the creation part of it. That's the part I don't know yet if you've really replaced that part because Gabe gave you some of that. So now we're going to put the burden on Tyler, I would imagine, to be a little bit more of a creator for you. But put it this way, if Tyler, for once in his life, could actually finish an entire season, you will be deeper. You will be better because you haven't had a player that's borderline all-star type guy to
Hmm.
help you in the postseason. So that actually would become, a positive overall. Caleb, maybe Caleb is ready to assume a little bit more responsibility and become a little bit more of the guy with the team. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Somebody's got to alleviate the load from Jimmy. Somebody, and I think that the part that I'm really intrigued is, are we going to do this carousel bullshit opposite of Jimmy, that somebody different has to show up every night? Or does somebody finally say, bam, Tyler, Caleb, somebody say, hell no, dude, this is my spot now. Now I'm going to be that number two
Yeah.
guy. And when Jimmy's off, I'm going to take over. That's what I'm intrigued with. Can that happen? Can somebody put on their big boy pants and take that next step forward?
Yeah, I think it has to be a combination of Bam and Tyler. We saw it, and they both had their moments last season, right, where Tyler would have Jimmy would be out and Tyler would have a huge stretch on the road. I remember that time in Oklahoma City. I think he set a Heat record for most threes in a game, and then he followed up in Houston with another big game. So he has that in him, especially offensively. Bam, we know he needs to be more consistent offensively. Defensively, he can take over a game. It needs to be those two. Those two have to have, again, career seasons for this Heat team to meet expectations. They just do. I mean, that's been the case now for the last 3 years because they really haven't made any significant additions. They've needed more internal improvement from Bam and Tyler every single season, and you're going to need that again. And you brought up a good point. We didn't talk about this last time. We spoke earlier this week. Kyle Lowry, we spoke to him this week after the first training camp practice. We asked him what he thinks his role will be on this team. He said he expects to be the starting point guard. I asked him, are you going to be disappointed if you're not the starting point guard? And he said, I don't expect to play off the bench. I expect to be the starting point guard.
Right.
Eric Spoelstra, non-committal, right, which I think is kind of telling. We'll see how they handle that. I would think
He's by default right now, bro.
eh,
I,
Tyler. I mean, I think I wouldn't be shocked if Kyle starts, but I entered training camp thinking that Tyler would start and be kind of the quote unquote point guard with Jimmy Butler Bam Adebayo, kind of, you know, splitting ball handling duties with Tyler because Jimmy Butler has the ball in his hands a lot, right? We'll see though. I don't know. I thought Tyler would be the point guard, but now since Kyle said that, I guess it's a possibility that Kyle does start again.
I kind of feel that one, Kyle will start. Two, they're going to want to kind of maybe try to showcase him and get him on track a little bit, because that way you may have an option to move something by the deadline. You know what I mean? If you start him on the bench and right from the get-go you're trashing him, it might be a little harder to move him by the deadline. So I could see, and then after the deadline, I can see where his minutes fade, and then Tyler increases. And as you get closer, and if he's not playing at a high level, then it's what you're saying, that transition then happens because you're getting rid of him anyways at the end of the year. And if your team is better with Tyler starting or whatever, or that kind of, so I could see, but early on, I think there has to be a way that they can showcase him, and that is by starting him. And if there's one thing he can do, he can at least get the offense, set and going. Yeah. And if he can do that early on, at least in the first half of the season, I think it's a good way of showcasing him. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
that's why I think there might be a little bit more of a methodical approach to all of this instead of flat out aggressive. Hey, let's start with Tyler and let's get going at 1,000 miles an hour.
No, that's a good point, but the counterpoint to that is you need to manage Kyle's minutes, right? We saw that last year. He can't play 30 minutes a game like he was early in the season when he was starting. It's easier to manage minutes when someone's coming off the bench. That's just fact. And number two, Kyle's best minutes last season came off the bench. It wasn't when he was playing next to Tyler, Bam, and Jimmy.
Right.
Because when he was playing next to Tyler, Bam, and Jimmy, he was just standing there in a corner putting up 2 shots a game. He needs the ball in his hands to be Kyle Lowry. So I think it's best for the team and probably best for him, minute-wise, usage-wise. If he plays off the bench, it kind of leads that second unit, maybe alongside Bam. It's him and Bam on the court while Jimmy and Tyler are resting, or it's Tyler and Kyle on the court while Jimmy and Bam are resting. It just makes more sense. But you make a good point. If Kyle wants to start, you want to showcase him. You want to see what that looks like at least to start the season with him starting in that lineup again. Maybe they do that. But the reason why I thought he would come off the bench
a lot. Maybe you don't play him when you start him, like a lot. You know, you just get him started and
a few minutes,
a few minutes, and then maybe that's the way you kind of control it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Eric Spoelstra handles it, because yes, a lot of these guys are back. You would think rotation decisions will be easy, but losing Gabe and Max shakes things up. And now you have Nico, who's going to be vying for rotation minutes. You have Jaime, who's going to be vying for rotation minutes. Who's going to be the backup center, right? I think it's going to be Thomas Bryant, but Orlando Robinson has, developed well this offseason. So he has some really, really interesting rotation decisions to make in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree, and with size, they definitely are deeper.
Yeah.
So that's actually a good thing too. They've got more bodies there now. I think that's really, really important. Overall, if I gave you a person that you think will surprise Heat Nation, who is it?
Man, that's a tough question because there's so many different candidates. I would probably say Nico. I think Nikola Jovic is going to have a role on this team. I really do. I know defensively there are still questions, but he's gotten bigger. He's gained weight. He's just so skilled offensively. I think this team, they know they need to be better on offense than they were last season. They were one of the worst offensive teams in the regular season last year. And Nico can help that with his shooting. We saw him improve the shot. This summer he shot it really well in Summer League and in the World Cup. His passing. He's just a really smart, skilled player. So I would say Nico, but look, J. Rich, right? He's going to play a big role. I'm not saying he's going to surprise anybody because we've seen what he can do. But if Kyle doesn't start, J. Rich might start at the second guard spot. J. Rich might have he might play 25, 30 minutes a game. He's going to have probably a big role. So we'll see. But I'll go with Nico if I have to give one.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how he plays because obviously he's done a lot in the offseason, played a lot of basketball. Yeah. So he can sharpen his skills. And I know that Riley is huge on players especially young players that are still in developmental stages, to play as much basketball as possible to develop. And he certainly needed it. I'm excited about Jaquez, man, because I almost have to go with Ira on this when he wrote it a couple months back. That when he got that shoulder thing, are they stashing him? Are they hiding him? And then there's still just a part of me that kid has some moxie to him, and I just think he's gonna contribute, dude. I really do. I think he's gonna. I think you're gonna have more options when Jimmy's off the floor. If Tyler can stay healthy, I think Jaquez will add something. I think Caleb is ready to take another step. I just think that's why I know Spo always says we have enough. He has two players with 1 0 each. We have enough. You know? I know you can listen to Spo. He's a maniac. But I really agree with him on this. I think they are deeper, and I think they'll replace those guys. The ball handling is the only thing that I worry about. But I really like this team. I just wish they had that other star, dude.
And I also think Duncan is going to have to play a bigger role this year, right? Without Strus, you need his shooting out there. He's going to, not saying he's going to surprise people, but he's going to be important. He's going to be out there with Bam and Jimmy.
Yeah. He already did. He surprised the shit out of me last year. He put
in the finals.
He passed. No, not the finals. The second half of the year, pretty much on. Dude, you saw him rebound. You saw him try to defend and get in the way of people. You saw him facilitate. You saw him put the ball on the floor. You saw him play without the ball. I just saw him become more of a complete play. I was so proud of Duncan Robinson because he clearly heard the criticism. And obviously there was already that, that whole talk about, Spo went after him about, hey, you got to do all these other things. Yeah. And to his credit, I loved what I saw from Duncan Robinson actually in the second half of the season into the playoffs.
Yeah, he added to his game. And I spoke to him about it toward the end of last year that, his approach while he wasn't playing, it wasn't to mope. And at first he was upset. He didn't know how to handle it because he was a full-time starter for the first 2 or 3 years of his career, and then he basically was out of the rotation. But he took that time to get better, to work on his game. So credit to him. And now that Strus is gone, he's going to have a significant, consistent role in the rotation as long as he's healthy.
Well, dude, now you have hope that he can improve in other areas because he already showed you that he can do some things in the other areas. So now you showed me that. Now I have hope that you can do that kind of stuff. That, in fact, to kind of turn it on you, this is what I got pissed off with this weekend with the Dolphins, the last weekend, because McDaniel once again abandons the run. Can't win a challenge. He starts doing all these screw ups in the game. It's like, yo, dude, didn't we go through this last year? You abandon the run again. You're not winning the challenges. You can't counter what they're doing. What's going on here, bro? And so that's the kind of shit that it bothers you. You know what I'm saying? Now, in his case, it always bothered me with Duncan that he was just a shooter. That's it. There was nothing else to his game. What he did last year was really fantastic, actually. And
that's it.
You hope, and that's my problem with the Dolphins right now with McDaniel. It's like, yo, bro, these are the important games. I need you to come through here. The same thing with Duncan. Yo, I need you to improve your overall game. Now we have hope.
And he did that, yeah. And he said something interesting on Media Day on Monday. He said, everyone is always making a big deal when I make a layup or drive to the basket or make a pass. And he's like, I really worked on that the last few years, but this offseason, I focus on what makes me really good, and that's my shooting. He's like, I already added that stuff. I feel comfortable now with other areas of my game. I want to get back to being a more consistent shooter. So it seemed like, not saying he didn't want to improve other parts of his game, but he got back to square one of like, okay, I want to get back to my shooting. I want to get more consistent. I want to get back to where I was a few years ago when I was shooting 40% and setting heat records with threes. And he knows that's his job, right? That's his primary role, especially when on this team with Bam and Jimmy. He needs to take and make threes. So yeah, there are a lot of, as much, again, there are a lot of the same guys, but there's a lot of interesting storylines because there's different roles for guys because of the new kind of setup with the roster.
And with no Dame, opportunities.
Yeah.
Because somebody's got to be a dog every night next to Jimmy. So who's it going to be? And it's up to somebody to, to step up. So we'll find out. By the way, are we starting anything from now to the deadline about anybody else?
I mean, there's always something, right? The James Harden buzz, even though that's not going to happen, like that's already like, Heat fans, they always want the next guy. So I'm sure somebody else will become quote unquote available in the trade market. But no, right now, I think they want to see what this after not getting Dame, after not getting Drew Holiday, I think they just want to see what this roster can do and move forward. And yes, you have Kyle Lowry, who's an expiring contract. Who, look, if there's who close to the trade deadline, that's going to be a valuable chip. An expiring contract at that amount, you might be able to get not a star, but a player who could help you, whether it's off the bench or another starter. I would be surprised if they don't add a player, at least one player before the end of the season. I'll say that.
Fantastic, because he hasn't been attracted to anybody except probably in his own home. But by the deadline, he'll be attractive to many other teams now. So, yes, sir, Kyle Lowry, get the hell out of here. All right, follow him on Twitter at Anthony_Chiang. What do you got going on in the Herald?
Yeah, today I'm covering the 4th day of training camp practice. They wrap up tomorrow, so I'll have a story from practice today. I think actually on your guy, Jaime Jaquez. So spoke to a few players about him, and they're really encouraged. They say the one thing that's like the common thread of their, when I asked about Jaime is he doesn't seem like a rookie. And that's because he's 22, 23 years old, right? He played 4 years in college. And they said, he thought he was a plug-and-play guy that would be ready kind of immediately to contribute. And it seems to the first 2 days of camp, that's what players have seen, like a guy who's more polished than your average rookie. So it's a good start for Jaime.
It's me, not the same game, so please don't go crazy on me. This guy's probably a Hall of Famer or close to Hall of Famer. I'm not exactly sure if he's in or not. Mm-hmm. But Chris Mullin was a really smart guy coming out of school. And he was crafty. And so I just feel that Jaime is that kind of guy that he's coming out of college, but don't treat him like a rookie because he has a mind to play the game. And so he's going to be able to really contribute more than what you think because he's really intelligent when it comes to basketball. And that's kind of the vibe I've gotten from him. Obviously, Chris Mullin was this freaking out of this world shooter.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Jaquez is that. I'm just saying Mullin, when he got into the league, he was already he was
a really step ahead mentally. Yeah.
Mentally. And I kind of think that that's who this kid is. Wade, again, another guy like that when he got to the league, he was already mentally ready for the league. That's what I mean. And I think Jaquez is one of those guys that mentally he's ready for this league. He just needs now what he needs is the experience of playing in this league,
right?
Learning how they play defense, learning each individual, learning the coaching philosophies and defensive philosophies of other teams. Those are the experiences that he doesn't have. That's where he's going to be. It's kind of like the smart guy from college to the NFL. The only thing he has to adjust to is the game speed and the experience, but he's smart enough to like Achan has been smart enough to handle everything. You know what I'm saying? But he just needs the experience. And I think that's what Jaquez needs. But I think he's going to make an impact, dude. I really do.
That's what interested the Heat about him, right? That he was a guy that they could play, they thought immediately. And they need that because they're in a win-now mode. Jimmy's 34. I know they didn't add Dame, but they need guys that can contribute now, not guys that are going to be ready in 3 or 4 years. And I think the hope is Jaime is that type of guy.
I just hope somehow there's some frustrated star that's available at the deadline, and they can
always is.
Because man, with Jimmy and that group that they have there, they have everything. All they need is that one extra star, and they'll have a shot at a title. They will have a shot at a title with another star. All right, Anthony, as always, appreciate you, bro. Have a great weekend. We will catch up next week, my friend.
Have a good weekend, Big O. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There you go, the great Anthony Chiang. And when we talk about our friends at Baptist Health of South Florida, we've got locations all over South Florida. And I want to remind you all, Doral, 9500 58th Street, the original Doctors Hospital, obviously, 5000 University Drive in Coral Gables. For our friends up north, Bethesda, East and West, both in Boynton Beach, 2 centers there. The Miami Cancer Institute, the South Miami Hospital at 6200 Southwest 73rd Street, Boca Raton Regional, which is at 800 Meadows Road in Boca, folks. The Mariners Hospital down in Tavernier Key. We've got also the Fisherman's Community Hospital at the 3301 Overseas Highway in Marathon. Got another one at 975 Baptist Way in Homestead. Baptist Health of South Florida is all throughout South Florida, folks, and you don't need to be a professional athlete to go where the pros go. The doctors at Baptist Health Orthopedic Care can see you now. Visit baptisthealth.net/ortho to request an appointment and get yourself back in the game.